I was interested in construction. And somebody told me that the head guy in construction was the architect, which turned out to be a lie, but by the time I figured it out, it was too late. I was committed.
I love that committed. I was just talking to one of these guys on the way in here, and I said, you know what? The difference between being involved and committed. For breakfast this morning, I had eggs and bacon. The chicken was involved, but the pig was committed. Like you said, you go too far, and you're definitely committed to it. So, but it looks like it's worked out well for you, though. You still enjoying it. Things have changed.
That's kind of the story I tell because it's true. But really, by the time I got into it and I kind of figured out what was really going on, it didn't matter because I was really into it. And I really enjoyed it.
Have you stayed in a certain discipline as far as commercial work?
Yeah,
or
we do primarily schools and colleges.
Oh, okay.
And we do some commercial work. But even the commercial work is like for Verizon, so it's more institutional type of work.
Okay.
A little bit of residential, multifamily residential, but not too much. Mostly affordable housing.
Do you see things picking up a little bit now?
For us right now, it hasn't.
Okay.
But it's kind of weird because when everything really dove down, we were still doing okay. So it's just kind of a little different for us. But right now with the state funding and all that, it's pretty bad.
All right. It was interesting. Thank you very much. It was interesting this morning. I saw on the news that they actually believe there's a housing boom, or I guess they didn't call it a boom, but there's a pickup on it that actually is. They hope is going to be substantial, and historically that has usually been the start of everything. So, are we ready to go? I didn't know. Is there a couple more?
We're missing a few more people, but they'll be here. You've got the three architects: Gene Amador, and Paulina Natera, and me, and then our fourth architect is on vacation this week. So, but there's a few more people coming. Tony and Juliana are going to join us.
Okay.
I thought Lori was going to come too. Okay, thank you.
Well, I'll do a little bit of introductions if you guys want us to get going, or we can wait.
No,
either way.
Tony, you almost ready to come on over? She's coming over.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. That's okay.
How is the architectural glass been in I mean, everybody typically likes to use architectural glass. You guys do much curtain wall, or has it always been punch openings?
No. We do some curtain wall. The last several ones we've done have been with Cal Lutheran University, and they've been using Arcadia as their standard over there.
Okay. All right. And then do you guys have certain structural engineers that are comfortable using curtain walls, or you use a consultant for that, or how does that, you guys
No, we use Lee and Associates in Thousand Oaks, and they're pretty comfortable working with it.
Okay. All right. Because we found there's some areas where some engineers just aren't. It's just not what they do. So a lot of times they try to push away from it, and based on that, not based on necessarily that it was a good or bad system for the project or not.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I know there's some liability issues with it. Structural engineers have some concerns about that.
Absolutely. So, what's that? Yeah. All right, well, I'll get started just to give you a little bit of background. My background is architecture from the University of Detroit. I still live in Michigan. I am part of a network that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, the Finishing Solutions Network. Currently, I am with the National Finishing Contractors Association, or actually now the Finishing Contractors Association.
What does that mean, finishing?
Finishing is finishes as far as paint, glass, flooring, drywall, and
so literally the finishes.
All the finishes that you're talking about, right? Okay. We're in here to talk to you about all those types of finishes today, specifically glass, though, as Taylor has set up. So my background is in architecture. I'm with the Finishing Contractors International now, because we're now in Canada also. Nick Carrillo is the vice president for the Finishing Contractors, who is here. He covers the whole Western region, and then Taylor Christian and Gene Simpello are the local association here. We have a contractor network of over 7,000 contractors throughout the U.S. and Canada, and they operate and lead the contractors in this area. So you're going to see our whole approach. I'm expecting that what we're going to talk about here today is probably different than you've seen before. From my background, I've sat in your seats heard a lot of presentations which are great for manufacturers and people with information like that. But we're going to come at it a different approach. If you're familiar now with AIA's Design Assist kind of program, it's really about getting people involved early on to help through the process, instead of getting down the road somebody saying, well, this is really kind of how we've done it in the past, or just having a let's call it a value engineering idea that comes back, and now you've got to deal with that, which takes time and money and all that. So what we're looking at is trying to put a team together up front. So Jeannie and Taylor are local here, and they're going to be looking to, if it's feasible for you guys, to start building a relationship with you, to be able to help you, provide you information, because you've got so much to deal with, and we'll talk about that in a second. The Finishing Solutions Network was created because we have, in the finishing industry, with all those components we talked about, we have all these pieces all over the place, and we wanted to bring it together with one effort going out there. So we're representing the contractors. Instead of you having 30 contractors come in here and talk to you, because that's now what's starting to happen through the Design Assist, we've said we'll pull it all together, we'll have one voice, and we'll go out there so we can get you the information, hook you up with the right people without taking a whole bunch of your time. So with the Finishing Solution Network, it consists of contractors, manufacturers, associations, and then we're providing education, technical support, certifications. These are just some of the things to make sure that you're getting connected with the right people on the job early enough. This is where I think it'll make a lot of sense. Up until now, this has pretty much been the typical process, at least where I came from, sitting in offices and having design build companies myself, and that is when I wanted to find out something, I'd get the manufacturer would come in and talk to me, give me all this. But the issue that we've run into, because the contractors were always busy, the issue that we've run into is that manufacturer, although they're fantastic and we need them, and you're going to see we want them part of our team, they are only going to be able to provide you with what they have. You know, we got pizza today, that's a pretty easy one, but if we got from a local deli here, they only have a certain menu. And if we brought that in for you, you might like it, you might just say, okay, I'll deal with it because it's what they have. The reality is there's all kinds of restaurants around. With dealing with the contractor as the initial contact, you have the whole menu of everything that's out there in most cases for what they know. So up until now, you've got the manufacturer based on what they've given you and dealing with you guys as the decision makers and influencers. That was the information. What through the Design Assist process and what we've kind of taken out of it is we've said, look, we want to put a team together to work with you. So the idea is to come in and talk to you about some of the stuff that we've got, sit down with you and be able to help. What is our interest in helping? Really for you guys, nothing. We want to come in here, provide a resource that you can trust on architectural glass, on finished systems, that you can go to kind of like a one-stop shop and get any information. You team you up with a contractor if you're doing a certain type of project, a certain curtain wall, so that you can get any information without having to guarantee that that person's going to get the job, because in a lot of cases you may not be in a position to be able to do that. The whole idea is for us to get involved earlier to hopefully reduce the cost down of all these RFIs and everything else that's going on, so that we can turn around and save time and money in the long run. Instead of the contractor coming in later and being the bad guy and saying, oh no, they would have been better to do it this way, to provide that information and you guys make those decisions up front. So, and then based on the project, he'll decide based on your needs, hey, you know what, we've got this person, well, let's bring them in as our team. Because what you're looking for, they've got the best menu to do that. And then if there's labor needed on it, we may have a gentleman from the local training center here coming in. If it's a big job and it involves a union or something, we've got resources with them to be able to do test panels, to do all the different kind of things we need. And then we're setting up everything now with technical support. So when you're looking at details of how the glazing is going against the other finished systems or anything else, we can provide that with you. And Jeannie says it best, without a biased opinion, because our contractors know they're going to get a chance to be on the project anyways. They're not. It doesn't matter whether you use menu A, menu B, or menu C. They want to match you up with the right based on your concerns. So if we can get in and talk to you, match you up with a contractor that his only expectation is that he may have a chance down the road because he understands the job better, that he might be able to put a tighter number on it and be able to get it, because we all know it's going to come down to the cost, right? That's what it typically would be. And then it'll get installed. So does that make sense?
So it's for the one product in the project?
Well, right now we're talking all the finished systems, but the way this is going, we may be talking pretty soon about all the building components, which sounds like you may be thinking that would be a very, very useful.
I had it judged. I was just trying to figure out where you're coming from.
Okay. So right now we're just talking about glass today. Okay. So any of your concerns with glass, we were in firms yesterday, and he wants to do a structural glass system that has some curved glass into it. So he can reach out to the manufacturers. I think the last one he used was in Canada. Or, as we're doing right now, we're teaming him up with a local glass contractor who has done a lot of that type of work. So now instead of them having to spend all this time researching, they can come in, and this firm is this contractor, very well versed in glass. They can sit down with them, provide them all the information, all of his options of what he wants to do, and then they can decide what they want to do. Does that make it a little bit better? Okay. So, but today, so we want to just give you an idea from, we wanted to present some stuff on glass. It sounds like you guys may have some great information, already using quite a bit of glass and understand it, but we just want to touch on some things about it and let you guys know that we're resourced and why. This is one of the slides I like using quite often, regardless of who the group is in the construction world, because Alan Shepard said it perfectly. Basically said, I'm sitting up here flying around on this rocket from the lowest bidder, right? Well, it may not be so bad if we're sitting here in a building or something, but I mean, our safety is a big concern, but I surely don't know if I'd want to be up there on a rocket. So he says it clear. So, and we look at this and say, you know what? Price is always an issue. Cost, when it comes down to the cost, it's always an issue. But wouldn't it make more sense and be comforting if we knew that it was the lowest competent bidder? Mm-hmm. The whole reason to make this connection between the contractors and the decision makers, you guys, is so that you're seeing that there is competent people out there. There is a certain, like I said, our network is over 7,000 contractors, so there's plenty of them out there. The other thing is, from sitting in your guys' seat, I totally understand of how complicated some of these projects can get, big or small. And some of them just have so much project specifications. You could be sitting here with 6, 8 inches, maybe even more specifications. Being in the contracting world for a while, I started hearing people start talking about, oh, the architect didn't know this, or why the architect do this, or why they mess up this and why they messed up that. And this is when it occurred to me, it's like, do you really expect them to be experts at everything? You're an expert in glass, because you're a glass contractor, but let me ask you how my HVAC system has to have the right airflow in this instrument room, right? In where they're doing their musical instruments. They wouldn't have a clue. So we've started to realize, wait a second, we need to provide, if we could take one section, we're talking about the finishes, and in this case the glass, if we could take one section of that and provide you a resource so you don't have to be an expert, but you had somebody that you could trust and get this information from, that would be a good thing. Because specifications, standards, ASTMs, certifications, all that stuff. I mean, some people really like to dig into all that stuff, but I remember I just wanted a source and somebody I could do it, get it done with. This kind of, in my opinion, kind of shows out what's happening with our construction industry. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Stephen Covey's book, Speed of Trust. But he explains in there, he says, look, when trust is up, speed goes up, and costs go down. He gives explanations like, you make a deal. If I want to sell you my house and you want to buy it and we trust each other, we shake a hand, it's a done deal. I write you out a check, it gets done real fast. And I can do that cheaper because I don't have to pay attorneys, I don't have to pay all this stuff. An example to go the other way, unfortunately in our world, is what happened on 9/11. When that happened, everything slowed down in our airports. Trust went down at our airports. So the arrow actually went the other way. The speed of getting through the airports went plummeting, right? and we're still dealing with it today. And then, so what happened? The costs went up. Got to pay for all those people, all that stuff. So this, to me, plays a big part in the construction industry, because we can have someone we can trust. The speed of what we're doing goes up, and the cost goes down. One of the things I hear all the time is people say, "What we don't know won't hurt us," and I remember hearing that quite a bit when I was a kid. The reality is, I think in our world, that what we don't know not only hurts us but costs us a lot of time and money. It's the information of where we're getting the information and what the motives are behind that. We think the unbiased approach of being involved with a contractor who's knowledgeable and knows, right? I mean, you have both ends of the spectrum there, and getting that information that you can trust somebody, you get that information and you'll be able to make it productive. Glass has been around for a long time. We all know that, going all the way back to the medieval era. There was with the stained glass. There's 3 architects here, right? How'd you guys like architectural history?
I liked it.
Did you? I liked it now, but there was one, we had architectural 1, 2, and 3, and 3 I took twice. So, but I wish I would have been a little older when I was going through that process, because now I can't get enough of it. But a lot of the guys and gals I went to school with, we complained about it. But now it goes into the 19th century where patented the sheet glass drawing machine, making the mass production of glass windows. Prior to that, there was 300,000 sheets used on the Crystal Palace. So I mean, it really has come a long way. And here we are, really today, with the Crystal Cathedral here in California. So it's really become a great source and a great building product. And as we sit here today too, have you guys done anything with any kind of floors or anything?
No.
It's amazing if we were sitting here even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and we came in here and just talked to you about the structural capabilities used on floors, you'd look at it and go, man, that's crazy. Does that really make sense? And yet today, it's being used quite a bit. And then the LEDs that are going in now to be able to do things like that are at Harrah's and all these other places. There's really kind of neat things happening with it today. The reason I talk about the things that are going today with floors, because here's the tomorrow. This is already being worked on. And not just from an aesthetic component, but also a structural component. Seems crazy, and I haven't looked into it enough to be able to answer many questions on it, what kind of loads they're going to be able to handle.
So those are trusses with the web is glass.
Yep, and actual structural members. Now, that's the information I've gotten so far. What structural member means, from being sitting in your world, that there's different capabilities. So, but there's 2 universities working on this right now. So it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. But you can see with being able to put images and shoot images up into the glass, and then this looks radius. These are triangle glass that is able to do that, but there's steps being made now into being able to make curved glass that can be affordable. So a lot of stuff going on. This all wraps down to really 4 systems in the architectural world with glass, and one is residential. The one you guys are looking at a lot of, and really the next 3, is just the commercial glass systems for the retail and things like that. And in there you've got the active glass systems. This is electrochromatic in action. This is literally low voltage that's changing the aspect of the glass going through. It's not the sun going down. So you can do this at different times of the day, and allows you to maximize daylight and solar energy. So there's really a lot, but you got that active glass. There's a lot of things going on in that world right now. And then, go back here, the building envelope. The curtain walls, structural curtain walls and things we're seeing. Really interesting on here, you can see, actually Nick pointed this out yesterday, we've got a window here that's open to allow airflow. One of the firms we've been in here lately talked about their concern about getting airflow when you start doing these closed-in systems and everything. Sick buildings, right? We, over the last, whatever it's been, 10 years now, really pushed to do these buildings that are sealed up. But when we seal buildings up, then we have all kinds of other issues going on with making sure we got the airflow and making sure they're not sick buildings. So the mechanical systems, if they fail, we're not all having problems. And then this is actually a double layered system. There's actually 2 wall systems. There's one inside of it too. and brings in some really kind of neat stuff going forward. So what's the value of all this with the glass? And there's so many components on it. We just want to just generically talk about the systems and their attributes, because with this new process of what we're doing, our objective was to come in today and just share some overall, but find out from you guys what is it that would be useful for you. One of the groups the other day said movement. We need to know how there's movement control between dissimilar materials, which we actually have just a touch in here. And so they want more information. They'd like to see a presentation on just that. They'd like to know that there's contractors in the area that understand the movement of things going on, and we'll get into that more. So this is just kind of an overview. We know, number one, everybody pretty much uses it as an enclosure and a finish. And here, again, using this media mesh, that you can do a lot of things. This is the stadium down in Florida for the Miami Heat, and then just the simple glass system too. A lot of things going on it with the finish. Then you have the light transmission. Everybody loves that. It can give us space that we can still feel like we're in a bigger space, give us a privacy, but allow internal light to be able to come through. And then this next one's really great because this is obviously an exterior system, but it's got those LED, those are those lines in there. So when you see the pictures of hair as we showed earlier and everything, it's really not that much distractive in the inside. So there's all kinds of those systems.
And you don't see the image from the inside, right?
No, and somebody brought up, and we're going to look into this, somebody brought up a valid question that we didn't have the answer, is what happens at night? How much of that? Now, I know they have it set where everything's pushing out, but are you getting some reflective? I've never heard of any problems with that.
I don't think you do get any.
But we're going to check into it just to make sure. But as far as the reflective coming the other way because the way these are shaped, I don't believe so, but I'm going to find out for sure. It's just really kind of neat. Then sound transmission. We do have some people that have shied away from the design of more glass because they need it to be quiet. And I think there's no better example than at the airports. When those doors open, it's loud. But yet, when we stand by that glass, of course we can still hear planes out there a little bit, but it doesn't even interrupt their conversations. So the STC ratings on glass, and then when you start putting panes together, you can really drop down, and typically these are just double pane systems that are kicking back the sound transmission coefficient that we need to get into that glass. And water resistance. We're going to talk about this a little bit with moisture and that in a few more slides ahead here, but we need that from it. We know, glass doesn't leak, and we need to protect it from the elements. And along with the thermal. There's a lot of different things going on with the thermal. We're going to talk about getting a dew point analysis. And we talk about this, and there's only one architectural firm that I know of, I know there's more, around the country that does dew point analysis on buildings, and they had to create the program themselves. But we'll talk about that in a little bit so that we understand we're going to get dew. I mean, if we put a glass of ice out in the sun, we know we're going to get dew, and we deal with it, whether we put a coaster under it or whatever, but we just need to deal with it and understand it. And then, of course, low maintenance. We really want to have information, let everybody know, because sometimes it looks at that it's not as low maintenance as it should be, and it definitely is. And then durability, again, 10 years ago, if we would have said we're going to start doing stairs and glass and stuff, they're neat components. People would think that it's crazy, but it's really, really great on how far this is going. The only thing I do know is in this kind of stuff, I want somebody who knows what they're doing putting it in, right? Because there's a lot of things that can happen with it, but it works. And then low cost. One of the things that's not in here that we've talked about since a couple of the presentations, and we will put it in there, is what exactly is the cost of these things. So we're taking a 100-foot long wall. We're just going to do a simple wall, 100-foot long wall, 2 stories high, and we're going to compare it, doing that in a curtain wall with the steel structure, with everything we need, foundation and everything for that, and then we're going to compare it to a framed out wall with a couple punched openings in it, and then look and see what those costs are. So cost is a big deal, but perception is that something as nice as some of these curtain walls and that we're doing usually is costing more because of the benefits of them, and we're gonna get into those details at a later date for that. Because this is part of what plays into that. And right now it's just an easy way for us to give an explanation that from 1991 to 2009, construction of materials and natural gas, a lot of building products have gone up because their consumption of those. The manufacturing of flat glass has really been able to stay stable with new technologies and that. So we're not suggesting that glass hasn't gone up. You're looking at the whole thing between labor to do it plus the products. But as far as the products go, they've stayed relatively flat for there. Sustainability. This is where I'm going to ask you guys for a little bit of participation. What does sustainability mean to you guys as a firm?
We've announced that several times.
Yeah, they asked, it's a popular one to ask in this presentation.
Yeah, it's got a pretty long, convoluted definition.
You're absolutely right. And the reason I like asking, because I think whether it's just us or if we had 50, 100 people and we said, write down what sustainability is to you or to your firm, you'd probably get 50 different answers. And none of them necessarily wrong. But it's an absolute wide range. But we looked at it and said, what does it come? Because you can go into the whole green area of sustainability and everything. But we think it comes down to this when it comes down to our, and this is from Wikipedia for whatever that's worth. It is the source, right? Sustainability is the capacity to endure. It needs to last. It needs to be able to produce. Well, we know glass is sustainable. Some fun stuff with the glass, though, when we started looking into all this is, I think most people, and I understood that glass is totally able to be recycled. Made sense. You can do a lot of different things with it. What I didn't know, which I thought was interesting, is glass manufacturers, they have a recipe like grandma has for her cookies or spaghetti or whatever. So when they put their recipe together with all the components and they manufacture this glass, anything that falls off as they're producing the product goes right back in 100% recycled. But when that product goes out and then it then gets demolition or whatever, they don't take glass back in because it could have been grandma's recipe from New York. And now all of a sudden, even though her recipe might have been good, grandma's recipe here might have been good, putting them two together is going to make it a totally different recipe. So the manufacturers don't take back in that glass. However, this glass is being used for so many different things. One of the really neat things that I've seen is you go to a restaurant that's outside and it's got glass and they put the natural gas underneath it and light it, so it gives you a fire pit effect. Have you guys seen that? Mm-hmm. It's really kind of neat, and they got all the different colors of glass in there, and all you see is the flames coming up. So it's a really neat outdoor fireplace.
Oh, I see. They use it like an aggregate?
Yes.
Oh, I
yeah.
see, yeah.
Yep, and the gas comes up through it, right. So they're able to light it, and it looks really cool.
Yeah, that is.
The concrete masonry industry has now put it into concrete masonry, into CMU blocks. And have you guys seen that at all? It's really kind of neat. At first, the idea was just a filler to save because of the cost of cements and stuff, and they could only put so much in because of the strength of the CMUs. But now what they found out is they can start floating this stuff, bringing glass up to the front, and get that different look on it based on how the sun's reflecting on it and stuff. Plenty of things that can be done with it. Here's the condensation thing that I was talking about, and one of the things, this really made me realize, it's an older picture, and, but to me it still makes a lot of sense today. The water's inside that glass, and we put it there. We understand that, but the glass isn't leaking, right? The glass doesn't have a crack and a hole in it, but yet we understood that there's going to be something occur here, and that's why we put the napkin down here, so that this condensation from the different temperatures that's created. At a certain point, if this glass sits out there long enough, it won't condensate. There won't create condensation anymore, because the inside temperature and the outside temperature will start to equal out, and it won't create this. Well, what this really got me to thinking about is when we were drawing up walls and buildings, is are we just drawing our walls, or are we designing them? And what I meant by this is it was at a time where it was simple. Okay, 6-inch metal studs with bad insulation, with half-inch insulation on the front, board on the outside, 2-inch airspace, brick, all this stuff, right? We'd draw it up, we'd have standard details. But depending on whether that building was going to be in Michigan or out here in California, has a totally different effect on what's happening with that wall. Because in Michigan, we have warm on the inside, cold on the outside, and then that flips over for long periods of time as our temperatures change. Here, maybe not so much, but it still comes down to where is this moisture occurring, and we know it's going to occur, what are we doing with it? So if we know this is going to happen, it comes into our cavities, then it's fine, but do we know it's happening? And if it is happening, okay, is it okay that it just happens 2 hours a day and we're going to live with it? Is this moisture getting down if there's any breakdowns in any of the flashings here? How's it being affected in this corner where this flashing just stops? Or maybe it's not. But it really just comes down to the point of just understanding where it's at and should we be looking at those things. Here's a dew point analysis, and I've got to get one made up for the glass, but this one is just a typical wall with, this actually is masonry and then sheathing going out here in the stud. But what happens here is based on temperatures and humidities, there actually isn't a dew point in that wall system right there. Dow Corning will run these things for you if you touch base with a foam supplier. They have a program that I believe even to this day they haven't made it available. But we're going to get one run on the glass, but the concept is still the same. 90% of the time, maybe even more, these two are going to cross and you're going to get a dew point. If we treat this and look at this as a pane of glass, if that dew point happens in here, what happens? If it happens out there, what happens? How is it affecting? Is that going into the cavity between our two panes? Is it going into the inside of the building? Where is that going if it's occurring at all? So with that we know, so we understand how to address this. Why is it important? Well, because of this little guy right here, mold. I don't know if you guys have had much problems with this, but probably 5-6 years ago I was at a conference, and another conference was going on with a bunch of attorneys, and over top of one of their entranceways it said mold is gold. And they knew that they were going to be involved in a lot of litigation with these molds. So what happens here, even if, now this happens to be the top of a window, this one's over in the corner of another one of a multi-story residential structure, but even though there's no food for mold in the glass, because we need three things. We need a food source. Glass, there isn't one, but water and air, and I don't want anybody to get rid of air anytime soon. And water, we just know it's going to occur. It's just nature. So we don't have any food for glass, so we think we're okay, but actually we got to look at, our concerns are what happens with the moisture that happens onto our windows and gets in, because maybe we need to provide better information on detailing and stuff with different components. Because as we get to the movement control, little snippet in here, when I was in, I used the Indiana limestone, and they're probably better than most, but they have a wonderful book out there on details of all their products. But they're an example just like everybody else, but they're a great example that they'll just show it up to and say other material or other products, but they're not going to get into saying how theirs is going to work with brick or how theirs is going to work with glass. And you got these expansion contraction coefficients that are different from the limestone, than are different from the metal studs, from the brick, and all those things, and how do they work together. And this is what affects with the water going in. So looking at the glass, right here we've got 2 panes of glass. That's pretty standard application that we'll talk about. Nick has talked to some people that have used 7 panes of glass. What was it, 3 in one, 4 on the other? So there's for structural capabilities.
It's at the new Freedom Tower.
Freedom Tower.
In New York, because
They
of
made it on the base levels for exposure glass and also efficiencies.
You just keep piling on each issue.
Yep. But when you do that, you can imagine there's other things you just need to look at. Not that it's going to cause you, well, it will cause you problems if you're not understanding. With just these two, we just bring up the issue of with your surface coatings. Where is that going to go? Pretty much everybody understands if it's on surface 1 on the outside here, surface 4 on the inside here, because you have 4 surfaces to this makeup. If it's on 1 and 4, you've got some maintenance issues. If you put that film on, is it going to scratch? Is it going to